Hello everyone, my name is Pedro Lopes and I'm with the Database Security Product Management team here at Oracle. The topic of today's session is Database Vault and how it can help you to reduce risk from malicious users. So let's start to talk about data. Can you imagine a world without data to support your organization and their business? It's really hard to think about it. It's often said that data is today's capital, and it's at the very core of all big decisions that are being made. Data helps generate new products and services. And whoever fails to understand this and do not invest in understanding the data they have will likely be losing opportunities, and your competitors might not be doing so. It's definitely one, if not the most valuable asset that can be found in most companies. And for some companies, data is the only valuable asset they have. It supports their core, their business, and their existence. But whenever we have valuable assets, there will always be someone that will try to put their hands on them. These malicious users could be coming from the outside, could be nation, state-sponsored competitors, or some guys motivated by the financial gains, or can come from the inside. It could be a colleague that is being threatened, or is not that happy and wants to get into the data and get away with it. Could also be someone that was able to log in into your network with stolen credentials and is now actively stealing the data. And data protection regulations aim to protect data. They provide guidance on what security controls and processes needs to be put in place. And if your company is subject to regulatory compliance and get breached or be a victim of fraud, it can be on a tough spot. You will lose credibility and customer trust, fines and penalties can be applied, and the bottom line is affected, market value goes down, and C-level executives can be on a tough spot. So multiple tools and techniques are available to make hackers' life easier. But defenders also have multiple security controls that can put in place to detect, prevent, and slow down attackers. In this session, we will focus on how to mitigate risk from malicious users by establishing a trusted path and preventing high-privileged users from accessing sensitive data. Why is that? Well, because a high-privileged user can become a source of risk. That user's privilege can be misused and eventually compromise confidentiality, availability, and integrity of your data. An attacker with stolen credentials can also abuse privileges to steal data. If we look at both sides of this war, we will see that we will have people with different mindset and capabilities. From one side, the data custodians. They rarely have the time, knowledge, and resources to protect their data. They will need to understand where their sensitive data is while doing many other things. From the other side, a malicious user that aims to steal your data also has a lot of work to do. But they have tools, they have time, and usually they have resources. High-profile attack that requires penetrating in your company network might require months of planning and a few seconds to exfiltrate the data. But generally, that's not a problem for the attacker. Now, the question is, even if attackers are putting so much effort in this, despite having a lot of tools available, can they do better? And one way to do better and make it easier for them is to use stolen credentials. So if using stolen credentials and abusing privileges can be more straightforward, why should they hack if they can just walk in through to the front door? So where shall we start? An excellent start is to encrypt data at rest and protect the backdoor. That will prevent anyone with OS access, could be your administrators or someone that is able to log in and get into your server and tries to peek into the data files from seeing sensitive data. Your backups and exports are also encrypted if you encrypt your data at rest. But what about the front door? So connecting through the front door, you have all your user community, your applications, cloud operations, dev operations, your sys user, your DBAs, your other business and power users. And these users will see data in clear as the database will transparently decrypt the data for them. So what if those users have too many privileges that enable them to do things that they shouldn't be doing in the first place? What could be the impact of a privilege misuse of these accounts? So for example, a junior DBA that just started to work at your company got the default DBA role and by mistake issues a drop database command. What is the impact of that? How can we reduce the risk from malicious users? So one thing that we can do is segregate duties for our existing users. That will help address two problems. The human error. So this is quite simple to understand. If you have fewer privileges or only the privileges required to do your job, it's less likely that you do something wrong, or it can even avoid completely the human error. The second thing is to reduce the risk of a compromised account. So if you have a compromised account that can do more or is privileged, it can become a source of trouble. So if we look at how typically databases get breached is via stolen credentials. So if someone steals the DBA credentials, do you want them to be able to see your application sensitive data? So segregating duties and putting some controls in place that help to prevent human error and reduce risk is a great approach. And all of this while maintaining your applications running with performance, high availability, and keep your operations going. So Database Vault enables you to put realms around sensitive data. So this will help you to prevent users that are not authorized to see sensitive data. So it limits the default powers of privileged users. So for example, someone that has select any table system privilege would not be able to select data from protected objects unless they are authorized to the realm. So realms prevent privilege abuse and misuse. Default realms, however, do not block direct object grants. So a user that got select grant on that table that is protected will still be able to select the data. So this is a way to keep your applications running without breaking them. In any case, well, if you really want to block access at a point in time, you can do that even to users with direct object grant with a mandatory realm. And Database Vault also enables you to define rules and rule sets and apply it not only to realms but also to commands. A command rule with the proper rules can enforce a trusted path for connections to the database. And this way, even if you connect with a valid login credential, so you have the right username and the right password, if you're not coming from that specific path, you won't be able to connect. And this can help to prevent bad things from happening. And a classic example is dev or quality assurance engineer on their SQL user interface. They have all their databases, production and non-production databases, and by mistake they connected to production and executed something that created a mess. So rules can also be applied to other commands, and that way disable or control the execution of commands in production databases. So for example, do you really want to drop objects in production? Or do you really want to allow creating packages or altering packages in production? Or should those type of activities be done in quality assurance and then move to production? So this will also enable you to control when these packages can be created, for example. You can not only disable completely, but you can provide a rule, and that rule define when or if that command can execute. So for example, these type of activities that can disrupt availability in production should be done typically in a maintenance period. So you can say that you can define a rule that allow execution of these commands just on the maintenance window. For example, every Thursday night you allow these commands. So if you are using multi-tenant, a direct benefit that Database Vault can give you is the peace of mind that CDB admins cannot see application-sensitive data that lies in the PDBs. And this requires enabling the feature with just one command. So you enable operations control, and you can prevent CDB admins to see PDB sensitive data. So in summary, we've seen that overprivileged users can pose a risk either because they can make mistakes or because their credentials could have been stolen, and the attacker will get access to a lot more privileges than we'd want him to have. So with Database Vault, you'll be able to enforce a trusted path to narrow down from where users can connect to the database, block access to privileged users to company-sensitive data using realms, prevent human error with connect command rules and controlling which commands can be executed and when, and prevent CDB admins from seeing PDB-sensitive data. And all of this while database administrators can still patch your database, do diagnostics, tuning activities, export data, and even if you would like to grant them access for some reason, they can access the data, if authorized, of course. As for the next steps, I'd like to invite you to explore the Database Vault Live Labs. Live Labs enables you to get hands-on experience while following scripted labs in a hosted environment. So in a couple of minutes, you are able to get started and try to enable, disable Database Vault and do some activities to try out what I'm just describing here. Okay, thanks for watching so far. If you have a few minutes more and you are still interested, I'll go into the details now. Just stick around. So to get started using Database Vault, you'll need first to enable it. On screen, you can see an example on how to do it on an autonomous database, but if you do it on an on-prem database, it will be more or less the same. The packages are different, but the configuration is quite similar. So in this case, I'm checking the DBA DV status view, and you can see ops control is not configured. Is the first line there, DV app protection not configured, and Database Vault is not configured and not enabled. Okay. So if you execute those commands, you'll see, as you can see it on screen, Database Vault becomes configured and Database Vault becomes enabled. So let's go through 4 scenarios now. So the first scenario is where I want to prevent the user that my app uses to connect to the database, the app schema, from connecting from a SQL command, for example, or if that user comes from a different IP address. So let's see how we can achieve this. So in essence, if it's coming from SQL command or from an IP address that is not authorized, not from my mid-tier, I will block connection. So this would prevent a user with stolen credentials to connect from a different path. To achieve this, I first need to create a connect command rule, and we start by defining the rule that I want to check. So we do this with the create rule procedure, and I pass it a name and a rule expression. And that rule expression can leverage the existing syscontext variables or some factors that are part of the Database Vault product. But in essence, here what you will want to check is really conditions that make sense in your case. For my particular case, I just try to exclude access from SQL command with that app schema user coming from an IP address that is different from the one that I provide on screen, that it is the mid-tier one. So this is my rule. Then, as I can have multiple rules, I need to bundle them into a rule set. I just created one, but I could have created multiple rules. So I bundle this in a rule set. So I create a rule set. I also give it a name, describe it, say if it's enabled or not, some evaluation options. I can say it will return true if all conditions are true, or in essence, if only one is true, I can allow to pass. And I can even customize an error code and an error message and put an handler. So if something happens, I want to trigger a procedure that will send me an email, for example. So, and then what I need to do is I have a rule set, I make the rule part of the rule set. So I add the rule to the rule set. And here I just say well, this rule set takes this rule, and this is the rule order. So I have one, so I'm saying one. Once I have that, so I have a rule set, I can then apply the rule set to my connect command rule. So I just go with create connect command rule, put a rule set name, a username that I want to check if it's enabled, and the scope, if it's applicable only to my local PDB or or globally or at the root level. In my second scenario, I want to block privileged and overprivileged users from accessing sensitive data. So the app schema user should be able to connect if it comes from my Meteor and if it tries to access this sales table. So it's a regular application activity. So my application usually selects from that table, so I need to continue that working without causing any impact to my application. But I want to protect my sales data if I connect with, for example, a privileged user that has select any table privileges. So in this case, I put a realm there, and an overprivileged user, someone that is using select any table system privilege to select from my sales table, won't be able to select my data. But as, for example, my other table, countries table, is not protected by the realm, I will be able to access my data. So, but keep in mind, I think I already mentioned this, that users with object grant privileges, for example, if you granted directly or via a role the select on app schema sales grant to a user, that user won't be affected and still can read data, because you have a grant that was specifically made to that object, to that user. So it's not just using a system privilege. And this way, my applications will continue running. So let's have a look on how to achieve this. So I create a realm, I give it a name, describe it, it's enabled. I don't want to audit in this case, and the realm is not mandatory. So it means that I will not block those object level grants. Only someone that is accessing this data using system privilege. And I add the object to the realm. So in this case, I want to protect my sales table. So I just say, well, protect this table named sales on this schema. If I want to authorize some further users to the realm, I can use the add out to realm, and that way I can authorize, in this case, Manish to also select data that is part of this realm if he has the privilege. This way, my application will continue to work. Any privileged users will select any table will be blocked, and other users with grant select on app schema.sales will be able to see and access the data. That's what I wanted to achieve in first place. So my third scenario highlights a great tool against human error. Sometimes you listen to these stories and you think that is a urban myth, right? So, well, did it really happen? But if you around and in this industry, I'm pretty sure you heard some similar stories. So someone connected to your production database and dropped the table or truncated the table or rebuilt an index or did something that shouldn't be doing in production. So how can I do that? So I'll show how to disable the drop table command in production. So I just need to create a command rule and say that I want to disable the drop table command. And in this case, I'm disabling drop table command in the app schema and all tables. So I could have been a bit more specific if I just want to prevent, for example, from dropping a sales table. I can just say object name equals sales. Okay. So that's how to disable drop table on a production database. If you want to have a bit more control, you can add whatever rule set you have on the rule set parameter there. Okay, so it's not just enable, disable, you can also use rules and rule sets to define the conditions where you can drop a table. The fourth scenario is quite simple. So imagine that you are running a multi-tenant database and want to prevent CDB admins from accessing PDB sensitive data. So, and how could you do it? And that's what Database Vault Operations Control gives you. So you just need to enable Operations Control with enable app protection command, and that's it. That's simple. At that point, no CDB administrators can select PDB sensitive data. Of course, this can you have more flexibility in operations control. You can even disable operations control at the PDB level, so you can, for some reason, if you want to grant access to a CDB admin, you can just disable for a particular PDB, or you can even add users to an exception list. So this way we keep it simple yet flexible. In summary, we've seen that overprivileged users can pose a risk either because they can make mistakes or because their credentials could have been stolen. That way the attacker will get access to a lot more privileges than we want him to have. So with Database Vault, you will be able to enforce a trusted path to narrow down from where users can connect to the database. You can block access to privileged users to company-sensitive data using realms. You can prevent human error with connect command rules and controlling which commands can be executed in production databases. And you can prevent CDB admins from accessing PDB-sensitive data. If you want to learn more, I added a couple of links there, so just go through it. I suggest that you read the ebook Securing the Oracle Database, authored by my team. I also invite you to join Ask Tom office hours, where you can meet product management and discuss the topic of the day or any topic related to database security. Well, thank you for attending. My name is Pedro Lopes. Hope to see you soon. Take care. Bye.